Welcome to the Pen by Design podcast. I'm your humble host, Destiny Jordan, and here on this podcast, we delve into the craft of writing, publishing, and tips and strategies of being a creative entrepreneur. So let's get started. Joining us today is the exceptionally talented Ikikima a singer, songwriter, and extraordinary and aspiring author hailing from the vibrant city of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Ikikima's music has the power to ignite your soul and transport you to a world where melodies and language of emotions. With her angelic voice and skillful songwriting, she has mastered the art of crafting tunes that not only entertain you, but also inspire and uplift you. From heartfelt ballads that tug on the heartstrings to upbeat anthems that make you want to dance, Ikikima's music is testament of the boundless creativity of the human spirit. But there's more to Ikikima's music at Paris than meets the ears. Her songs are like windows into her own unique universe, where storytelling takes center stage. Through her lyrics, she weaves intricate tales of love and triumph, everything in between. With each word, she invites you into her world, allowing you to connect deeply with the emotions and experience she shares. But truly, it doesn't stop there. As an inspiring author, Ikikima's creativity has no bounds, where her storytelling propels you to beyond the lyrics as she delves into realms of fantasy and sci-fi and fun places there, creating captivating tales that transport readers to extraordinary worlds of imagination. Her writing is a testament of her ability to weave magic, and not only to her music, but into her words. So whether you love music or you're seeking to be inspired for inspiration, prepare to be blown away by the incredible talent and boundless creativity of Ikikima. So let's embark on an unforgettable journey and dive right in. Welcome, Ikikima.
Thank you for that, Destiny. That was cool.
So I tried. Gotta give yourself some more props.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. So the big thing I love to get into is your book creation. So there's a lot of aspiring authors out there. And the most daunting task of all things is picking one idea. Like, where do you go for with that? So just before you get into that, why did you even start writing?
Let me see. Why did I start? I'm trying to remember when I actually started, because I don't have a story of like writing when I was younger or anything. I started in my 20s, actually. And it's just because of the kinds of stories kinds of shows and movies and anime that I used to watch. I just wanted to be able to create stuff like what I saw. I wanted to be able to come up with concepts. And at first I didn't think I could. So I remember just praying that God would give me ideas. And just when I got a little deeper into anime in my 20s, because I just started seeing a lot of concepts I'd never seen or like the kinds of stories I'd never heard of before. I really expanded my imagination. And I started just trying it out and just going, you know what? Let me try it. What if I made an anime series? Or what if I made a TV show that was about this or that? And it was easy to just try it out because at the time I wasn't thinking about anybody ever reading any of the stuff or ever seeing it. So it's just like, oh, I'd love to have my own story. It's kind of like something I was doing kind of in secret. And my two younger sisters, they were starting to write more too. So we shared it with each other, but not really anybody else. So it was kind of, I guess it kind of started as a hobby in my 20s, which I feel like is late in comparison to a lot of people. So I hope that answers the question.
Of course, most likely, because with writing, it's never too late to start writing. So I don't think you started late. I think you started right on time for you because you started trying out there. And plus, the gateway of anime is a great gateway of all great writers.
Yeah.
Because those are my favorite. That's exactly kind of the similar story that I used to watch. Like, oh my gosh, like how do people think of these things?
Yeah. Something I thought of for sure.
Right. So what was your favorite anime you started with?
At the time, my favorite I think was Inuyasha. At the time, I think that's what it was. I really liked Inuyasha. I really liked I remembered watching Trigun, Full Metal Alchemist at the time, Cowboy Bebop. But yeah, I think Inuyasha was my favorite at the time. Yeah.
That's an oldie but goodie. Don't sleep on old animes.
Yeah.
So I do know that from our talks previously that you have written a book. Haven't put it out there, but I'm, ladies and gentlemen, when she puts it out there, you're going to be blown away. It's a very good book. So what was it like first of all, for many authors don't really get to it? How do you feel to finish your first book?
So that's a loaded question for me, because the actual first book that I finished caused me to quit writing. So it was actually a very difficult process, because I just wanted to set out to finish it, but I didn't know if I was capable of doing it. And I just kind of kept pushing through, but I was still very insecure in the process. And it was because this was going to be one of the first times where I was letting people read what I'd written, because I told you when I started, it was just going to be like secret, like me just writing. I was coming up with concepts for fun. But this one, I kind of kept pushing through it, kept rewriting chapters, it took so long, because I think it took 2.5 years, because I just, you get that feeling of you can never get it right. You have to redo it. And then I finally was like, let me just get the whole story out. And that was how I finally got to finish that one. And I did let other people read it. And I just didn't have what's the word? I didn't have the strength of mind and strength of heart to take criticism. So even though so much good was said about the book, the criticism broke me. And like majority of it wasn't even, like when I think back on it now, it was good. It wasn't, nobody was trying to be rude or mean, or they were saying what was true, but I just took it to mean, that sort of thing where it's like criticism, like I know for me back in the day, I used to feel like my character was being attacked, even though it was my work. It was what I had created, but I felt like it was me. Like, oh, you didn't write this. This wasn't clear. So you're not capable of writing things that are clear or that are easy to understand or whatever it was. So I finished it, but it was such a long, grueling process that I was like, you know what, this is too much trouble. And I actually put it out there for sent it to agents to try to get it, a literary agent and everything, and just kept getting rejections. So that didn't help. I was just like, yeah, I'm not good at this. And I ended up quitting. So that was my first experience with finishing a book. I quit writing. So yeah. But yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm glad you came back.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you came back. But I really do think your story mirrors a lot of beginning authors, because you feel like you're exposing a piece of your soul, because you spent so much time writing something and putting your whole heart into it for it to be almost like slaughtered on the altar of other people's opinions. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable process.
It is, but I think it's also a great process of unlocking the senior inner strengths, because that was similar to my story, because I started in high school and my English teacher said, it's so good, so you should go submit it to this writing competition. I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, I got my teachers, I'm feeling pretty good. I've never submitted to a writing competition beforehand, so this was a new experience. And I said, I tried my best and sent it out there. And the feedback came back, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not that good," And they were just saying to develop it more and characters more. Really, actually, not bad criticisms, but I felt that meant that I couldn't write. And so when I think it was in my senior year or junior year of high school, that's when I had stopped writing. And I was like, yeah, it was like it's always been a pipe dream, the starving artist, just making all types of excuses. Why it didn't work out. And I later had to come back and say, okay, this is what you need to do, and it'll be all right.
Yeah. It's pretty similar. I wasn't going to come back, and it was really, God almost started haunting me with he was like, hey, why don't you try writing like the same book that I thought was a failure? He said, why don't you try rewriting it? Start from the beginning. I was like, oh no, I'm good. Maybe like, hey, you should should try writing it. Like there was just kept coming from like popping. At first, it was like kind of like a quiet. You should try writing. I was like, no, just go, And then finally, it was like, yeah, you really need to write. Like his voice got really loud and clear. He was like, I want you to write. Like, and when he said it like that, it was like, oh, that I'm not going to say no to. Before I was like, okay, it's my choice that I'm not doing it. So I was like, okay, I'll try. But we saw what happened last time. It wasn't that great. But since you really want me to do it, and that was how I started writing the book again. I thought I was just about to rewrite that story, but it came out as a completely different story. That one took me 2.5 years to write. This one took me 10 weeks. And it just poured out of me. It was like in a way where I almost feel like I couldn't quite take credit for it because it just felt like I was copying what I was hearing in my head. Like it was just, I would just see the pictures and just copy down. It was just not like before where I was striving. Okay, I'm going to put this part here and that part here. It just flowed right out of me from beginning to end. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I just finished the book. But it was a completely different experience when I finished this time because I think it pouring out of me like that, I was very connected to the story but I could see it more almost as a viewer. But it also made it easier for me not to tie myself to it in a way where when I got criticism that I felt like, oh, I'm being attacked. I was like, nope, I'm confident that this story came from God. So I know the story is right. And I knew the things that if people gave me criticism, good criticism, to take that and apply it, I knew how to do that. Or if they gave me criticism I knew didn't go with the book, I knew how to go, okay, I'm not going to use that. Almost like separating the meat from the bone. So it was a completely different experience that second time around. So I don't really count the first book, even though it's a finished story. It's a super convoluted story. It's like I was trying to throw in every idea I had because it was like, is this my last chance? My only chance. So it has so much in it. Like now when I read it and I'm like, I could break this out to so many different stories. So it's like the second one that took me, that's what I kind of count as my first finished book, actually. So yeah.
I said, "Whew, that's really awesome," and that just sounds like a lot of writers because I know a lot of people. I scratched there. A lot of people say when you try and be a writer, you need to have thick skin. You need to, you need to be ready, ready to take on the world. Where it seems like for you, you didn't have to have thick skin, but it's a change of mindset. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, 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 and confidence, really, because I think that was my greatest struggle as a writer. It's not as bad now because I'm just generally more confident as a person, but just believing I'm capable of doing this, believing that I have the talent. The part that I need to learn is how to execute and express that talent, but I have the talent. So it's not an attack on my talent if people don't like it. People have preferences. It's not an attack on my talent if someone has criticism. It could just be geared toward that criticism could be geared toward how I'm executing the story or did I write it well? Was it good English? Is there a better way to express this? And those are parts you learn as you go and you can study and get better at. But yeah, as for the talent part, I had to learn I'm talented in this area. I have stories in me that other people don't have. And I have stories I believe the world has to hear. So it took a little bit to build that confidence up, but that definitely made writing easier. And actually, believe it or not, learned how to enjoy it. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And I really like how you said it really was more of not really, it was between confidence and execution. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, where a lot of beginning writers kind of have a hard time getting, where to help with execution, you have to practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just have to keep on trying, keep on learning. And that's what make you a better writer. Not mm-hmm. dismissing any talent.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure people like J.K. Rowling didn't say her first draft was the thing of the gods.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you used that example because she's actually one who she experienced so much rejection before Harry Potter became the Harry Potter we know, before somebody finally picked it up and believed in it. You know what I mean? So it's like, all these kinds of writers, they experience that rejection too. They experience people telling them, professionals too, even telling them this is crap, So it's it's not the easiest line of work to get into though. And I when I read up about it and stuff, but it really you really have to have a lot of or you have to grow a lot of belief in yourself,
Ooh,
So
I like that. I think we should start making that a thing. Like, it's not thick skin. Just believe in what you write and believe it can get better.
Yeah.
That's just so good. That's just going to help a lot of writers to understand that it's, as they say, trust the process. It's one step at a time. No one likes it.
I don't like that sentence. It's so true. Trust the process.
He's like, gosh darn it, can I not be here soon enough?
I know.
But that also brings to one of the things I heard in another writing community, that when you first start writing, you just have a knowledge gap, as what she calls it, where you know what good writing looks like and you know what it sounds like. But then when you try to do it, it's not exactly how it's supposed to be.
Yes, it's so true. I definitely experienced that, the knowledge gap. You can recognize this is a good book. How come I can't make my book like that? But it takes, you actually have to put in work, no matter what your talent is. I feel like a lot of people think when it comes to art, you just do art and it's just good. But it's like you have to put in work to develop it and make it stronger. So to become a better writer, you have to write, you have to read, so yeah, there is that gap, and it can be discouraging. And there's also the thing of when you get the story out the first time, that's not the point where it's like, okay, let me give it to people to read and have their, no, that's like word vomit. You just pour out the whole story. These books that we read, the actual book is like sometimes the 10th draft. Okay. You're not reading, oh, somebody just wrote a book. They just poured it out, and from the beginning it was just perfect. You read, this is them, they've edited it, then edited it again, then they cut out a part of the story, then they added a part to the story, then they had their editor read it, then they had their family, their friends read it, then this is, you're reading polished stuff. Like all these behind me, like all the books, it's like many people went through them for them to get to this point. You can't write something when you first get that story out and expect it to just magically be like this, so.
Right. And this is where I feel like being an author and just being a creative in general really makes you more collaborative in nature, because you want, you have a desire to put out good stuff. And so it requires you being with other people to help you get better. Yeah. And I just think that's how God sets it up, because anything, any job, any talent you have, you need other people to help you verify, get it out there. It's not one-on-one. It's you and many. Yeah,
you're so right. And that's something I had to learn about writing that I actually didn't know, that it takes, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I feel like it takes a village to write a book. I feel that way with storytelling in general. There's some movies I watch where I'm like, how many people okayed this? It went through so many different eyes, and no one said, oh, why are you guys doing that? So, but yeah, I feel that with a book that's a really hard part, because in the writing process, I realized I wasn't just kind of insecure about my stuff, but I was prideful about it. So that pride of like, if someone says, no, I don't like this, even though there's like that sense of, oh, I'm not good enough. On the other hand, I also felt like, what do you know? You don't write. Like these two like completely different, both negative on the different ends of the spectrum, things going on in my head, But yeah, it's very humbling to have other people read your work and tell you what they think about it. It really is.
So, other question when you're crafting your book is, let's just say I'm new, and I say I finally done the thing. I've gone to the top of the mountain and I've written my book, and I'm pretty exhausted. So I'm like, all right. Now, usually a lot of people say, hey, go talk to other writers, and then maybe for a lot of people, I don't know any other writers. It's kind of a secret society at times. So no one knows who writes. And so you just give it to family members and then they don't read. So then then they give you all types of criticism. Then sometimes you're like, what do you take? Do I take that or do I kind of toss it away because of the qualifying factor of you really don't read and maybe not read my genre? So how did you, when you first finished your story, how did you know who to give it to?
Well, let me ask you a question about it first. Is this after you've read the book? Because I have to do that once I read it. I mean, once I've finished writing it, I might give it a week or so. Then I have to come back and I have to read it. I have to be the first person who reads it. So you say after that, because I believe that's a very important thing first for you to do, for you to be the first reader. So it's like, I guess to answer your question, you give it to yourself first. Like you need to go through it, read it yourself, but kind of take your eyes off of it for a moment, a number of days, maybe a week, maybe more than a week. And you come back as the first audience member and see how it makes you feel, what it makes you think when you read it. And you look at it like, like an editor, like, as I said, a viewer, a reader. So you're the first person. Secondly, to decide on who, I admit I was very blessed to be born into a family of writers. I also just randomly happen to know a lot of writers. Like I know you, Destiny, you write. I know like I've met people at work who like, oh yeah, I write books. Like it's random. Like that I have a writing community. But I do know that not everybody has that. So even though I have that writing community, something I had to learn how to do is I prayed about who to give it to because I would say, okay, not counting the first book I wrote that failed, I've written completed 2 books afterwards, 2 very different books. And the group that I gave to read this first book was very different from the group I gave to read the second book, because the first book was like fantasy. The second book was more drama. It was more like a real life story, a contemporary drama. So I just prayed, and I would do that. I've just kind of made a habit to go like, okay, God, show me who would be the best person or who would be the best group of people to give this to. I do have so I have my siblings first, and I actually don't always give it to every sibling. I do have maybe a couple of siblings who, whenever I write a book, I send it to them because I know they're going to want to read it. They're writers. They're going to give me their honest opinions, tell me how they felt about it. For the second book, I had one of my siblings who it's just not her style it's not her preference. So she's not going to be that interested. She's going to be forcing herself to read it. I wasn't offended by that. It's just, that's not who I want to read my book. I want to get an idea of the audience. She's not going to be the audience. She wouldn't have bought this book had it not been written by me, So I would say, yeah, prayer. Also taking a look, okay, who do you know who reads? Even if you can only get one other person, it doesn't have to be you don't have to feel like you failed because you didn't get 10 people. Even if you just have to look around, even if it takes a while to find, just keep your eyes open. I feel like you'll find somebody, even if it ends up being somebody we didn't expect. But yeah, to me, that's where prayer really comes in, and just prayer guiding. God will show you, God will open up those doors and show you people oh, why don't you give it to that person? Oh, why don't you? And it may not be someone who would have been at the top of your list if you'd written the list, So yeah, I hope that kind of answers the question, because I realize I'm not the best person to ask it because I happen to be surrounded by writers randomly, So, but yeah.
No, that was awesome. Just because it's kind of making you kind of get out there, try people to find someone, but also it sounds like you really discerned who this book will be best for out of who you knew. So it wasn't like you gave it to everyone in your family and then you get a hot pot of all types of misconstructions. You have half negative, half positive. Then you're like, well, I'm in the middle then. Because I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of good stuff. As we're going through trying to figure out our writing, we got it out there. And then next steps will be you can take a route of publishing yourself or go finding agents, whatever works best for you. Here we're talking about self-publishing, but still traditional publishing is always an option. So don't count it out.
Yeah. That's really still my preferred option. And it's not because I really do respect self-publishing, and I've thought about it. I just personally haven't been drawn to it because I feel like for every book. I don't know, like going the route of trying to get an agent is tough. And I've read so much about it. Like, well, like Stephen King, who we know to be this writer that people all over the world know, right? Do you know that that guy, like, he was rejected so many times that he threw his script. I can't remember which one it was. It ended up becoming a movie that everybody's watched. You know, that he threw the script away. His wife had to go get it out of the trash, and she was the one that encouraged him to keep writing because there's so much rejection in this industry. You know, and you're like anything that you read will tell you, especially if you want to go the route of trying to get a literary agent, you're looking for the person who is the perfect fit for you. You don't want someone that doesn't want you. If you are looking for one person in an entire country, it's tough to find them. I still have not found that person. I do believe I will, but I've I've shown or presented my work to so many different people, and I've gotten those, you know, sometimes you don't get the response back. You're just told, if we don't respond in 3 weeks, that means we're not interested. If we don't respond in 6 weeks, the hardest ones are if we don't respond in 6 months, then we're not interested because they're still like, okay, are they going to pick me up on the last day of that 6 months? You know, so it can be pretty discouraging. And sometimes they do reply and you actually get a response. And they, even though you're getting a response, you're happy to get a response. That response is, I'm sorry, but it's not a good fit for me. You know, so it can be a very discouraging round. Some people have the greatest, you know, I guess you could say luck with it. You know, some people they just have an easier route where they got some sort of exposure somehow, and them and that literary agent who believed in their work somehow got to meet early on, you know. So everybody's story is really different. Mine so far is one of the ones that's more common, which is it can be kind of grueling. You just keep doing it. You just keep pitching your stuff, as they say, queries. You send out a query. You send out, you send it out to different ages, making sure it's somebody who specializes in the genres you're doing, someone who, as you've read about them, would they be a good fit for your work? Because it's not just, oh, I want anybody. It's just you also have to have standards and stuff you're looking for. I want someone who specializes in this. I want someone who would know about the area my story is in, so yeah, it's tough. I don't know as much about the self uh, publishing route, which you'd probably be able to speak on a lot better, Destiny. But I know that the trying to get published is not easy.
It can be not easy, and I do know for sure a little bit on from talking to other people that do traditional publishing. It is, besides sending query letters, if you all know of any conferences that they may be at. I know each state does it differently. I know Alabama and Georgia has different conferences where agents come down and you have a day or two where you can go up there and query one-on-one. So there's a lot of options. So if you're trying to do traditional, they're making it a little more open so that you can kind of get out there and help out with that if that is what you really want. This is no shame in that. That is still awesome. Simon and Schuster, Random House. I was like, oh my gosh, things I grew up on. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
On the flip side, self-publishing is really just for those who just wish to have more control over their books. Okay. And that's where I lean toward more into it, because of the more control. I can change my covers whenever I want to. I can find editors and willing to work on them one-on-one, then have them go through a chain. That's just really the summation of what self-publishing offers to authors, if that sounds good for them. And that's kind of really I've leaned towards of more so doing the business of the publisher than being a sole writer. So that's kind of where it leans towards for me. And of course, you could do both. There are a lot of authors that do both. They self-publish a couple books, and then a traditional author may pick them up, and then they'll do 1 or 2 books with them, and they go back into self-publishing. And so with your writing, you can be very fluid. It's not, you don't have to be in a box, because it's writing. Listen to this. We make stuff up for a living. So we can make our own rules. But that's always an option.
Yeah.
So with all the writing, you have quite a unique creative journey. As I said earlier, folks, she not only writes, she writes songs as well. So my big question is, how did your creative journey begin from you writing books to doing your live concerts of original music?
So it was very unexpected for me. I grew up with music being big and just my family, my house. I, as a teenager, had a dream to become a star, which died quickly because I was like, yeah, why trying to be a star? So, but music, singing, it always was a dream of mine to be a singer, to be on a stage and have my music. And really, I didn't write. As I said, I started doing everything later. I don't have those, I've been writing since I was 2, kind of stories. I had songs just started coming to me really with lyrics in 2020. I really, over the years before that, I had like ideas for songs and stuff. I used to create instrumental songs on the piano, but just, for myself, just stuff I dreamed would one day be soundtracks for films, for animated movies, stuff like that. But in terms of singing and writing my own songs, that just wasn't something in my peripheral at all. But 2020 hit when I left my job that I'd been at that company for 7.5 years. The day after my last day of work, I woke up at 5 that morning with music pouring out of me. It was almost as if leaving that job open or reopened music in my life. I didn't know it was blocking it. So it was like all of a sudden music started pouring out within that month, because that was February of 2020. I wrote an album's worth of songs, and I wasn't writing lyrics like that. I'd written a few songs, but nothing ever felt like it was it. These songs when I was writing, I was like, this is good, but I was also fighting it because I was like, this is off point. I'm trying to be a writer of stories. Why are songs coming out? Move aside. But it's like this stuff would wake me up in the middle of the night. But as I'm trying to fall asleep, music was like I had to record. So like I'm falling asleep, like blah, 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 like singing into my phone because lyrics just kept coming. Whereas it was like it was forcing its way out. I've never had that happen to me before. It was a very strange experience. But something I learned from it is I am meant to create music, because why else would it force its way out like that? So, and I made the kind of the song coming out of me was the kind of music I would listen to. It's the kind of music I found good. So yeah, that's how that actually began for me. And after that album's worth of music, more music, it still hasn't stopped. I have like hundreds now. It's like they just keep coming out. And then a desire to kind of share them with people came. And I would just search for opportunities anywhere I could to just share them, even just with family. Because I was the music's only audience for a long time, because we were in quarantine, when this happened. So I wasn't going to be going out. I got to do one performance at a UPerk cafe here with my sister, because she'd already performed there a couple of times. So she was like, let's do a joint one together. And this was my first time sharing my music. I think you remember it, Destiny, back in March of 2020. This was my first time sharing my songs with people. I loved it. And it was also one of the hardest things I've ever done, because our music is so vulnerable. So that journey, that's how that came about. It just came by itself. I wasn't trying to make anything happen with music. I fought it, and then finally had to go, okay, I guess you're here to stay. You're not going anywhere, and now love it and I'm used to it, So
Wonderful. And folks, her first performance was amazing.
Thank you.
I was like, oh my gosh, it's Ikikima. So that was a wonderful performance. And since then, you had another outing.
I have another outing or had another one?
You had another one, but after that one.
I did? Where?
Mm-hmm.
Where did I have another outing?
You had at the talent show.
Talent show. Oh, I completely
Totally forgot your own story.
did forget. I was like, what is this? Is this a trick question? No. Yeah, I did. I actually that was last year. I joined a talent show. It was very random. I was like, oh, this talent show is doing auditions now. I wonder if the auditions are finished. Oh, let me find the number, call the person. And I called and fully expected them to say you're too late. It was just like a whim that I even decided to find out about it and do it, and I was just like, and the lady in charge was just like, yeah, just bring your stuff. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's too late. Yeah, come on. like they were past auditions. She's like, come on, just bring your stuff. And, I went to the place where she worked. There was like a dance studio and all that, set my stuff up, sang my song. She just stayed and she's like, you're amazing. And I was like, hey, thank you. And she's like, yeah, you're going to be in the competition. And there was like, my song was only supposed to be like so long, but my song was like longer than the time. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Go ahead, sing the whole thing. And it was like, it was a fun experience, like just to be recognized, because I ended up getting a certificate. I think in my category, I placed in my category. So to be recognized at all, I never had that happen. So it was very cool. It was a lot of fun, and also another opportunity to share my music. And I realized that, I don't know, it just feels very good to get to do that, because it's just fun, and two, I feel like people need my music. And I think I can say that easily and not from an arrogant place, because, as I said, it just poured out. It doesn't feel like it's coming from me anyway. It feels like, you know what I mean? So like, I feel like I could talk about it almost like a listener separate from it. I feel like people do need my music, because music did a lot of healing for me. So I think it can be healing for other people. So any chance to share it, I always get excited about it.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, you all really have to hear her music and find her music, because it's just a joy to listen to, for one. And I just feel like when people are creating from a pure place, of a heartfelt place, I feel that always transcends through whatever you're creating, whether it's a book or it's your music or even instrumental music. Is always, I feel like anytime your spirit and your soul transcends through that. And you can always say, like, even when like some rock music, you're just like, I think he's angry.
Yeah.
I think he's really angry.
Yeah, you feel what the artist feels. Yeah.
So, I'm really excited for this next question. How has change influenced your creativity as you've gone on?
That's a heavy question, because we all know these changes that we have gone through as a human race over the last few years. They have not been easy. I think all the different changes, from COVID, because for me, living in America, I became a lot more aware of the racial issues we have. And I admit, because I come from a whole other country where we've got our whole other problems, I wasn't as aware. So even becoming aware of that changed, that matured my creativity. I have a thing now with my writing where it's almost like I've found more purpose with my writing, what I want to do with it. One of the things I used to just complain about while sitting on the couch watching TV was, I don't see myself much on TV. I don't see a character who looks like me. Who's my color? Who's my gender? I don't see that much. I don't see me as a main character. I didn't see that as a little girl. I didn't see little girls like me in your fantasy stories and your sci-fi stories and your big epic tales, that it's this little girl who goes and saves the world. So that's become a huge thing for me now, because a lot of my books, my stories before, a lot of the concepts and ideas, I realized the main characters weren't as much based on what I felt they should be, as much as they were based on what I had seen, So now there's more of a focus of almost me imagining myself in the place of the main character, and having like, like even the stuff I want to be, that the stories I have that it will be animated. I'm like, I'd love to see a beautiful Black woman as like your action, supernatural story, like main character. She's the one kicking butt, and everybody's like, she's the one directing everybody behind her. Like, that's something now that gets me excited. and change that all the stuff that was happening. That's one of the biggest things that happened. It changed that in my stories. It changed who do I want the main characters to be? Who do I want to speak to with my stories? I also do have this desire to see just more diversity in general in stories and stuff. So it's something that even in my books, I'll point that out. If someone has locks, I'm going to point that out. If someone, like whatever cultural differences, I'm going to point that out in my books, because I want people to be able to read my books and find themselves in it, or read or watch my, the ones that will become movie scripts or TV shows or animated series. I want people to be able to watch those and see themselves in that story, so that was one of the main changes. I think generally my music from the get-go in 2020, because the timing of writing it happened just when quarantine happened, so a lot of how I felt toward just the state of the world and will we ever be okay was coming out in my music, so that change really affected my songs, and just it really stirred up a sense of hope in me, because even the songs I have that sound like they're starting out depressing, we always end in a place of we're gonna be all right, so yeah, it's I think that's a very good question, because all the changes that we've gone through as a country, as a race, as a like all these things have affected my creativity. I'd say generally it's all matured my creativity. It's important for anything I create to have a message. What am I trying to say? That's an important question. Me and my sister, she writes too. We always say that to each other with even stuff we watch. We're like, what were they trying to say? Did they think about what they were trying to say? And I know that's not important for everybody. The main aim with a lot of entertainment is to entertain. I understand it. I respect it. Me personally, I want to create stuff that changes people's lives, because with all the changes, especially the negative stuff we've gone through over these last few years, I see how important it is for us to have hope. I see how important it is for people to be uplifted. I see how, a lot of people have gotten very sad and angry with a lot of the stuff that's been going on. So I want to be able to create things that kind of help people want to keep going, kind of help people go, okay, I can make a change, or change will come. Positive change, let me say, so yeah.
Love it. Just because of, I agree with so many nuggets you dropped in there of just looking at, I know for my writing, what am I saying about whatever I'm talking about? What is my message, my moral, my theme? Because at the end of the day, I feel like everything has a message or theme. Mm-hmm. We just don't always pick up on it, mm-hmm. whether it's good or bad, depending on whatever you're watching. Yeah, because I know from one of my favorites are like mysteries. I was like, I always want to figure out who done it, and when you figure out who has done it, then you ultimately figure out why they did it. Then you're like, oh. So sad sometimes, but like, okay, I get you now. This is why this all happened. Oh, for our listeners, where are you from, Ikikima?
Oh, yeah, I'm originally from Nigeria.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I completely forgot. I just keep thinking, oh, yeah, Destiny. Why, yes.
So, yes, I know.
Yeah, I'm half Nigerian, half American. So my mom's American, my dad's Nigerian.
We're so glad you're here.
Me too.
In America. But with change, I feel like change I think change is inevitable, and it's for the better, because nothing in life will ever stay the same. And if it does, I think usually people feel that growing pain because you're made to change. Mm-hmm. And when you don't, it's just kind of make you feel like, what's going on? The sky is falling, where it's not really the sky is falling. You are resisting change.
Yeah. That's very true. Wow. That's very true, Destiny. I didn't even think about that. That even if you're sitting in complacency, that they feel like there is something in you that starts to cry out or change, because your insides know you're not supposed to just stay in the same place. So that makes a lot of sense.
Right. I just think that as we're growing as creative either entrepreneurs, just creative people in general, I think we're more adept to change because it's just like, we're going to do it. Like, as you said, going from writing books to songs, you're just like, well, all right, then we're on this new thing, you know, and where someone else may not, if they will probably, if they could have took the rest of their life to reject it and be in this state of constant no. Where on the other side, now that you have released your music, which has been a blessing to me because I got to hear it, and others who had a chance to hear it, how much more great is your impact because you just said yes to the change?
Yeah. It can be hard though to get past yourself, your own reservations, your own fears to that point of, oh yeah, I forgot this could actually affect other people too. It's hard to get out of that bubble of just, but I don't want to do it. But it's hard. But it's not easy. But it's off point, which is what I kept saying. It's off point. It has nothing to do. I was supposed to be a writer, So yeah.
Right. And that's just like, I think a life thing as a creative of just constantly being able to discern what's a yes, whether it's how you thought it should be, or you're just like, it's a yes for now until I get thrown back somewhere else and then come back to the original thing.
Yeah.
But it just feels better to change and on that creative journey to let it be. Because who really knows the future? No one really does.
Yeah. That's actually what you said there, that let it be is actually one of the things I live by, especially with my music. It's let it be what it wants to be. Because I always have stuff pouring out of me. Used to fight it and be like, no, this lyric needs to go like, no, the lyric's trying to come out and every time you sing it, it comes out this way. Why are you trying to correct it, make it something else? This is what it wants to be. Let it be what it wants to be, so.
It said it'll be good. You never know what's on the other side, and that's kind of where I remember hearing that life is meant to be a daring adventure and not a walk in the park.
Yeah,
and I was like, And so it's kind of like, look at your life. Is your life a walk in the park? You get up every morning, you drive on down to somewhere you need to be at the work, you drive on back home, you eat your food, and there's never a type of part of daring of maybe this time to get home I took a whole nother route just because.
Yeah.
But that's just another conversation for another time. But my other question, which actually leads into what do you think makes it hard for creative people to believe in their own gifts and talents?
A number of things. I think one of the big things is, did you have that support or encouragement growing up? Because I didn't. I didn't know. Like, luckily, me and all my siblings, our talents just happened to be big enough that they were going to be out there. We were going to be working and then walking them regardless, But still, we didn't know that we were any good at the stuff we were good at. We didn't know we were any good at the things we were talented at because just no one told us. So I think that's one of the biggest things, just growing up as you are showing any bits of talent in whatever it is you're talented in, or, just whatever it is you're being creative in. Is there anybody noticing and going, wow, that's really good? Or how did you do that? Or showing any sort of interest, and just not having that can communicate to you that maybe this isn't a big deal. Whatever it is I'm creating, it's not a big deal. It's not that great. It's just, I think also comparison is a big thing. If you are comparing yourself to the greats right now, the greats didn't start out as the greats. The greats became the greats. They have a whole journey, a whole story. You're at the beginning of your journey, but it's like, oh, why am I not as good as J.K. Rowling? Or why aren't people reading my books the way they read Harry Potter? It's like, you got to work to get up to that phase. Like, you don't know what she went through to get there. And you may not even want her story, to be honest, so comparison is a big thing. And I think also not a lack of consistency, just because you have to stick to it. Writing a book doesn't take a day. Well, maybe for some people, but I know for me, it doesn't take a day. I have to keep coming back and going, okay, chapter 2. Okay, episode 3. I have to come back and keep going with the story. Sometimes I have to sit and create the characters, which is my favorite part. It's the easiest part because this is the part no one has to see, no one has to be invited in. You just have a ball by yourself. There's no such thing as right or wrong. You just enjoy yourself. But just creating the characters, coming up, world building, all of that. Do you actually sit and do that? Like these, like when I say it takes work, the work is still fun, but yeah, that consistency of actually going, I'm going to finish the book. You have to, every time I'm writing a book, I have to tell myself, I'm going to finish the book. While I'm trying to finish the book, I have to keep saying, I will finish it. So yeah, those are three things I think are really, really, they can really stunt you in just believing yourself. Oh wait, you said in believing yourself. Yeah, I guess that consistency one didn't go. But yeah, the first two did.
No, that was someone need to hear. And I need to hear again because consistency, I think I've heard that quite a few times. And it's true for anything. When you are consistent at it, it's in the small steps that lead to big results. And it's just hard to believe, but it is. It's the small steps. It's like the writing. Because I know when authors start out, it's like, I want to, let's say I want to write 1,000 words a day. But, I'm only getting out maybe 200, and it's okay. But the whole thing that I feel like makes authors better than the very beginning author is you keep on doing it. I think I've heard on another podcast there, he was saying, he was talking about his books. And they're like, how do you keep on doing books? He said, I think my biggest thing that has helped me grow is just finishing books. I just finished them. and then he published it. I was like, he said, that's all you have to do is just finish a book.
I feel
and of course there's a lot more into it, but it's to finish at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's and keep going, because I think that's the thing, because if you have a whole book where nothing ever comes of it, it doesn't mean you stop, because that was what caused me to quit writing and stop believing in myself. It was the first one. It didn't go the way I wanted it to. People weren't nobody was excited about it but me. And then it made me go, wait, why am I excited about this? Clearly it's not worth being excited about, So I think not getting the feedback or the desired response can be daunting, and it can make you lose belief, even if you're someone who had belief in yourself. But you have to keep going. It's a faith walk. I believe writing is a faith walk for sure.
I really do. I will concur on that. And it's just, you have to believe what you write is good enough for where you are now. Because I think, as they say, comparison is a thief of joy. Because then the whole reason, hopefully for most creatives, the whole reason you started writing was because of the joy of it. You wanted to make something you didn't see out there. And then you made it. You made it eventually. You made it. And then you lose your joy when you compare. It's like, I missed that comma right there. I said, or all these different things. Truth be told, guys, I do have a thing with commas because of my English teacher. She bloodied my paper because I was horrible at commas. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, why?
Look, but I got for spell check and stuff like that.
I was like, I don't even know. And then, but her note was good content. I was like, but you bloodied my paper with commas.
The commas, that's funny.
The true story. That was just a free nugget of why me and commas are not friends. But back to the real question I had. Sorry about that. It was far as... Oh my gosh,
Okay.
Let's say, okay. My real question was so let's just say, if you're starting off and you think you have talent, but I know for me, when my family tells me something, I usually, even grandparents, I think it's because you're my grandparent or you're my parent, and you just feel sorry for me that no one else has recognized this talent, and so I really take their feedback with a grain of salt, and I look for other people I was like,
you're my mom. You're supposed to say that.
I was like, yeah, you don't really count. So I don't really take much from you. Like I know my grandfather, he's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I was like, you're from the 60s. You don't count.
You're from the 60s. Shade. They're trying to encourage you, Destiny.
I said, I don't take. I said, I was like, I just feel like other people will be more brutally honest because I think I guess for me, my own thoughts and maybe other writers, you don't want to naively go out there and then have someone smack you down and you look at them sideways saying, you told me this was amazing.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. Strangers will be brutally honest because they don't have any reason for bias or they don't owe you anything, so
yeah. Right. So no, they really don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
Can I ask a stranger on the street like, hey, what do you think of this? He's like, it's not bad. I was like, all right, that's a good one. Good place to start. But what do you think? So if you say, let's say I didn't want to ask my family, come like, it's not going to work. They're always going to tell me it's good. Where else would you go to have your kind of work critiqued in a kind of a safer environment?
Well, let me see. I know there's sites where you can, like websites, like where there are writing communities. I know that, because I can be so paranoid about my stuff I create. I'm always like, oh, if I copyrighted that thing, I don't know that I want to share it, So, but yeah, like I know you can find like writing communities online, So I would say like Googling like where you can find like good writing communities, and then also making sure you read like how is this stuff ranked, like how many people are saying no, this is legitimate, because that is something that can happen online that I like, where sometimes people are like pretty honest about this was bad. So maybe if you want to go that route online, I know like there's maybe some like writing communities there. I know with Reddit has a lot of random communities there. I know that's one. But yeah, in terms of, you're saying to get like an honest opinion?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like everybody knows somebody who's going to be brutally honest with them, like because something I'll do, because I know, like I have people I know, whether family or friends, who I know aren't going to read the entire book. So if I have something in particular in the book that I'm like, I want this person's output because I know they know about this or they've experienced this. Like, for example, the last book I wrote, it dealt a lot with trauma, so I have someone in my family who had experienced something that one of the characters had experienced. So I had her, I told her I had specific sections I wanted her to concentrate on and read and be like, okay, did that seem realistic to you? Did this part where, like, so even if it's like, it is friends and family, but picking out the ones who would give you an honest opinion about even sections of the book, if you can't get them to read the whole thing, maybe doing it like that. Or even if you want just someone's opinion on how they think it sounds. I remember asking one of my friends who I got to read the book, I was like, does this sound like a real book? And I knew she knew what I meant, because I was just like, does it sound like, I just put some chicken change on a page and was like, hey, mommy, can you read this, daddy? Can like a little kid, like, look at my coloring, is it good? Like, or does it sound like, it sounds like close to like something you just pick up off of a shelf, like, so I don't know, like, I think you can still go to friends and family, but once again, it's the discernment thing of choosing the right people. Also, depending on what it is you want to know about the book, I think it is good to have in mind, okay, like for me with the last book, because it was about trauma, I wanted it to feel natural. I didn't want it to come off like a Hallmark movie. I wanted it to sound like real conversations people are having. So like, let's say I gave this one to my sister. I was like, I want you to pay attention to the conversations. Do these conversations sound real, or do they sound like people don't really talk like that? Like just having notes of like, I need to find out, is this okay? Is this easy to understand? Is this concept? I mean, do they understand the storyline? Do they, even laying all that out and then assigning certain things to certain people? So I don't know. I don't know how much that answered the question. Once again, I said maybe a bad person to ask about those things because I just happen to have people. So, but yeah, even if it's just getting certain people to look at different sections, and and also don't avoid the people who are just going to be encouraging, because for your own peace and joy, you need those people to read it and tell you how amazing it is, how amazing you are in the midst of people criticizing it. So that's what I feel.
So that is actually really good. I said, I'm just a person who looks for bad news first and then give them the good news. So that at least, so
Hi.
it just, I don't know why my brain works like that, because I feel if I get the bad news first, then I actually appreciate the good news better.
Oh, wow.
Because if I get good news first and then I get the bad news, I'm going to be down.
Yeah,
I have nothing else to go from there.
I need the sandwich. Good, bad, good. Let me start off good, squeeze in the bad, and then let me end with good.
So that really can work. And that's really just saying with creativity and putting your work out there, it's what it sounds like you just said, like your people that you're asking, they have a goal. You have a goal about why you give this, that. Like, okay, let's say it's kind of like you say, I finish the book and I give somebody chapter 3. Well, they haven't read 1 and 2, so they're totally out of context and not really sure what they're looking at. But if I say, hey, this is chapter 3 where this happens, can you critique that? Then that's more of a better guideline than dropping down this chapter or whatever portion it is and saying, what do you think? And they're going to probably say, I'm confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a lot of good stuff. So now, time for the fun part, our rapid fire round, which is just asking our couple questions. So here, for young writers listening, what is one piece of advice you would give them on their author journey?
It would probably be to make sure you create stuff that you would be an audience member of. If you weren't the one who wrote that book or wrote that song, or, but if you heard it, would you be drawn to it? Would you like it? Would it speak to you? Would it touch your heart? I think it's very important to be the very first audience member of what you create. And that's why I was saying the thing earlier about once you're done writing a book, step away from it for a while and then be the first reader. So yeah, just create stuff that because I can say create stuff you're really passionate about, but create stuff that even you would be a consumer of if it wasn't yours. Because I think there's something that kind of naturally puts your passion into it, so yeah.
I concur, because why would you write something that you don't care about? That would be like torture.
I've seen it. I've seen people do it because it's like, oh, audiences want this. So you write in that way, as opposed to what are you interested in? What do you like? What would you watch? You know what I mean?
Right. And I feel like there's an audience for everything. It's really just how you execute and position it. Because you could write, I feel like most people could write a murder mystery, but you can have a fun spin on it if that's your thing. It's out there somewhere. There's somebody. There's, I don't know, 1 trillion people out there in the world. Somebody,
yeah.
come around. Next question: where can people connect with you?
With me, I guess it's becoming a most consistent place again. Twitch.tv. I sometimes, not as often as I used to, but I sometimes will play my music on there, sing and play my piano on there. So it's www.twitch.tv/African Beep. So Beep is my nickname, and I am African. So yeah, that's probably the place you'll find me the most. I'm on YouTube, but yeah, the older videos. So, but yeah.
Awesome. And last thing, what book do you recommend young authors or just creatives to read?
I would say this book called On Writing Well. I actually have it behind me, but by William Zinsser. So it's a random one because it's geared toward nonfiction writing. So the writer speaks more from it sounds like he's speaking more to like journalists or people writing that kind of content. But what he talks about to me works for every writer. Like I have some things, I haven't read the book in years, but I have some stuff that's stuck in my head for years and that changed the way I write. For example, like he talks about being very concise in the way you write. Because I know, especially with fiction, we really want to put all the prettiest words out there. And there's a way to do it, but just making sure you're not just filling your sentences with fluff. Making it more concise can actually help to keep people's attention. So, but yeah, I think that's a good one, even if you're a fiction writer. And I think it's one that people should give a chance and read through a little bit. You'll probably find at least one thing that'll help you improve your writing. So.
Facts there. To be a good writer, is one of the best things to learn is that you have to improve your craft. So it's reading not just fiction books, but reference books, any type of way to break down structure books, because you want to be good. So you got to put the work in, like school. Got to put some work in. And it looks different from everybody, but that's also a great resource as well. Announcement! All my Tuscaloosa dwellers. What's coming up, Ikikima?
I will be performing a bunch, actually, of my original songs at Uper Cafe downtown. It'll be from 12 to 1:30 in the afternoon. And what else about it? Uper on July 29th. So at the end of this month. So it's going to be fun.
Right. You all get to see live in action what I'm talking about on July 29th to see Ikikima at Upert, all my Tuscaloosa dwellers.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Ikikima, for being on the show.
You're
and
welcome.
Thank you all for listening to Pen by Design. I'll listen to you next time. Thank you for listening to Pen by Design. Links are in the show notes of all items mentioned in today's show. Don't forget to pick up your free self-publishing guide to start your author journey in the show notes. Pen your own story designed by you. Catch you next episode. Bye for now.